Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 8. We are talking about walking worthy of your calling. Before we get into the meat of the episode here, I just want to mention my book, The Good and Noble Heart 10-Week Transformation. It is a 10-week Bible study / devotional book / guided journal. It is meant to be a daily practice for you to take between about 10 and 30 minutes, depending on how involved you make it, to focus on your identity for 70 days. Just get it settled, to settle who you are, apart from your performance, apart from your calling, apart from your purpose. Just get it settled. I want to think about myself the way God thinks about me. I want to understand who I am without my relationships, without my, what I produce, without what I consume. Just who am I in my essence? How does God think about me? I want to think about myself that same way. Critical, if you want to live a fruitful life, to settle your identity ahead of time before you start bearing fruit, so that you can stay steady through the ups and downs. And that's available on Amazon, and I will link it up in the show notes. I also have a video series called Transforming Your Life from the Inside Out that is also a 10-week series. It goes along with the book, and it is 10, 15 to 20 minute video coaching sessions with some activation practices and group study notes if you want to go through the book as a small group, or you just want a more in-depth personal study. All right, episode number 8, walking worthy of your calling. Walking worthy of your calling. First of all, before we get into how do you walk worthy of your calling, let's just define the terms calling, what it means. This is Understanding Your Identity and Purpose podcast. And the main analogy the Lord has used in my life to help me understand these things is the garden and the gardener. We've talked about this before, but it is so important to get this right, to get it clear in your mind. Your life, your body, your mind, and the fruit that it produces, your actions that produce results, is the garden. But your identity is the gardener, the spirit who cares for and watches over your life. Now this is critical, because the gardener can have a connection, a relationship built on trust with God. The gardener, the spirit, your true self, can walk with God in the garden, can share your body, walk with God in the garden, and relate to Him and know Him and experience Him and receive revelation, receive grace, receive love, receive joy, and can feel connected to the spirit realm, can feel connected to God, can feel connected to heaven, can reach into this realm of infinite possibility, this realm of revelation, and can manifest what you see and hear in heaven, what you get from the spirit realm, you can manifest it on the earth through your physical body and your mind. You are the gardener. That is your identity. Your identity is only known in its connection to God, in its connection to the earth, in its connection to heaven, in its connection to other people. You cannot have an identity that is separate, whereas you're taking from life and trying to find yourself, get pleasure, take meaning, take happiness. You can only know who you are in relationship to the whole. In relationship to the whole. You do not have a separate identity. You are not unique, special in that sense. All of us have a uniqueness to us, but I'm saying you cannot know yourself separate from God, separate from heaven, separate from the earth, separate from all of the people, separate from history. You can only know yourself in the context of relationship, in the context of where do you fit in the body. So that is your identity. Your purpose. You have an inner purpose and an outer purpose. Your inner purpose is to stay connected to God. It's to stay aware of yourself as the Spirit, as the gardener, to stay connected to God, or to stay aware of God's presence, to host His presence, like to house, to share your body with the Holy Spirit, to share your life with the Holy Spirit, and your outer purpose is to manifest heavenly things on the earth, to manifest spiritual things in the natural, to bear fruit, to take the seeds of revelation and the water of grace and grow something, produce fruit, and share it with the world. That is your purpose, to stay connected and to bear fruit. Your calling is the specific thing that you do in the body. It is what makes you you. And again, it is only known, or it only matters in relationship to the whole. I'm going to use a few analogies here to help you understand. I hope this helps. If you are a writer, I think of myself as a writer. If you are a writer, if you are functioning properly in your calling, I know that I am not, my identity is not a writer. Writer is my function. It is my calling. It is a role I play. And it only matters in the bigger context. So, I publish books and I use a printer and a publisher. I use Amazon to market my books, make them available for sale. I have people above me. I have businesses above me that serve me in the printing and the publishing and the marketing of my books. below me or next to me are my readers and those who are benefiting from the books themselves, the ideas in the books. I am in the middle, serving a function, serving my calling of taking in a lot of research, spending a lot of time with God, thinking through complicated issues, making connections, forming original ideas, taking from my own experience, and then writing something that benefits my reader. Now, if my books sell, it benefits me, but it also benefits the reader, and it benefits those above me, those helping me sell the books and print the books. And in a way, it helps those who read the books and become more aware, more understanding of their own identity. They will then bear more fruit, and it will benefit the people that they're serving. So I am only useful. I don't have a function on my own. I serve no purpose without the whole, without the greater good, without people above me, below me, and around me. The same is true as, a part of the body. Say you are a liver or you're a finger, or you're a toenail, or you're an eyeball, you're something in the body. An eyeball serves no function without a head to be in, without nerves to send signals, without a brain to interpret those signals, without a skeleton to hold up the head, without muscles to close the eyelid and open it, without the whole context. Each part is worthless, it's meaningless if it's disconnected, and it's completely invaluable if it's connected. The more connected and the more aware of that connection, the greater the value. The eye serves just an incredible function, incredible usefulness. It's unique and useful and special and amazing and worth more than all of the money in the world if it's set properly in the body. But apart from the body, it's meaningless. It serves no function. So that's what I want you to understand. Then when we get into talking about walking worthy of your calling, we're speaking from Ephesians chapter 4. If you want to go there and study, I recommend the entire book of Ephesians. It is incredible. Paul had such an understanding of these themes that I'm talking about. But Ephesians chapter 4 specifically, he says, I want you to walk worthy of your calling. And then he spends basically the entire chapter explaining what that is. And he's saying, I want you to walk with the lowliness of mind, with love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit. And goes on to explain how we all share the same Spirit. We all have individual bodies, individual gardens, and there might be some uniqueness in those gardens. One person might have this kind of soil and another that other kind of soil. The size of the gardens might be different. How much sun they get, how much, what part of the world are they in? Are they in the equator, or are they up north, or are they in the south? All of that is different and unique. But what makes them useful what makes a garden useful, what makes a body, what makes a life valuable, is its connection to the greater good. A business, say you run a barbershop. A friend of mine runs a barbershop in Mexico, him and his wife. It serves no function. It has no use. There's no value to it without the investors that helped him start it, without the equipment suppliers, without the electricity coming from the electric grid, and the government keeping it safe, and all of the things around it and above it making it possible. And then it serves no function unless it has customers who need their hair cut, who want to come into a shop and get it done. It serves no purpose without the whole, without the body, without the economy. Businesses do not operate in isolation. They serve no purpose in isolation. They're only good as a part of the whole. A tree is only good as a part of the forest. Its connection to the ground, its connection to the sun, its connection to the other trees. It serves, to feed animals, and the animals serve to fertilize its soil and the water and the nutrients and the air and the wind and the people. Only in the context of connection does calling matter. So what happens? What happens is we have these barriers to fulfilling our calling, and they're all some variation of living from the awareness of our lack. So we don't feel connected to God, so we feel a lack of purpose. We feel a lack of love. We don't feel forgiven because we're disconnected. We don't feel approved of. We don't feel loved. We don't feel peace. We don't feel joy. And so we have this unsettled anxiety. We have worry. We have doubt. We have fear. And we respond with control, and we're trying to get from life. So a lack of connection, and a lack of awareness, a lack of consciousness pulls us from our calling. Another lack might be a lack of clarity. So some of you might be saying, well, I don't know what my calling is. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm called to do. And that is because of a few things. Callings are discovered through a relationship. They're not, the idea that you would get knocked off your horse like the Apostle Paul, and then you would see a blinding light, and then you would hear an audible voice, and then that's it. From then on, you know exactly who you are, is so rare. And even in the Apostle Paul's case, he didn't immediately know everything. He went and spent a lot of time alone, and then he spent time in relationship with other apostles, and he discovered his calling to the Gentiles. He discovered his apostleship. There are these encounters with God. In my case, there's a very important dream that I had, like a literal dream at night that woke me up, and I've shared some of that. There has been some visions I've had. There has been times of impartation that from other, anointed leaders, there has been a lot of discovery from story, where I hear a story of somebody else doing something and it so resonates with me, like a tuning fork resonates with a certain vibration. You can get a sense of calling from other people's stories. And then there's just a whole bunch of trial and error where you're trying to love other people. You're trying to practice. You're trying to walk out your calling, and you are discovering what your calling is through the prophecies, through the trial and error, through the testimonies, that the feedback that you're getting. You start to notice what your calling is by the way God used you most often, the place where you get the most fruitfulness, the people who celebrate you the most, the skills that come naturally to you, the practices that you develop, the desires that arise in your heart, the trial and error. It's a discovery process in relationship to God. It's how you find your calling. So that there is this clarity that comes with practice. So if you feel a lack of clarity, it's because two or three things. One would be you don't feel connected to God on a daily basis. There's not a sense of connection. You don't hear his voice. Your mind is too crowded, too loud. Your ego is too loud, and you can't hear his voice. You can't feel his presence, and you can't make sense of the dreams or the pictures, the impressions, the desires that he's putting in your heart. You don't know if they're ego desires or not. There's a sense of disconnection from God. And the other thing is a sense of disconnection from people. When we isolate ourselves, we try to get from life. We try to get something from our job, try to get something from our position at church, or from our role in the family, or from whatever. We isolate ourselves, and we don't understand who we are, because who we are can only be understood in the context of love and service, where we're serving a role in the body, we're serving a function in the economy, we're serving a function in the government, or in the marketplace, or in the scientific community, or in the healthcare or nutrition or whatever. We're serving a role, a function in the greater, in the whole. We're serving a role in the economy, in the city, in the marketplace, in education, in church, in some place with some people. We are loving and serving a role, and from the trial and error and the feedback of that, we discover our calling. So if you're feeling a lack of clarity, it's because you have felt disconnected from God and disconnected from other people, and you haven't had enough trial and error interaction to discover your calling. So, there's a lack of connection with God, a lack of clarity. There could be a lack of relationships. I know this has been true in my own life, because I was so driven by my ego. What happens is, if you are driven by your ego, you will either, when you are around other people, you will feel insecure, like other people are better than you, or you'll feel arrogant, like you're better than them. And both of those are kind of two sides of the same coin, and they make vulnerable, meaningful relationships impossible, because you are always trying to get from others instead of give, and you don't feel equal. You feel either worse than or better than people, which means you're always trying to either be the hero and be the one that's teaching and trying to get approval, get people to agree with you. This is huge. You're trying to get agreement. When you're insecure or arrogant, you're trying to get agreement from other people. You're trying to get pleasure. You're trying to get approval. And so you can't have a truly shared, meaningful, vulnerable connection, because you're not equal. You're below or above. Love is the feeling of being connected to another person. I'm going to say that one more time. Love is the feeling of being connected to another person. You feel like, and this is really important, this is the essence of what I'm talking about, walking worthy of your calling, is to stay aware of your connection to other people, which means what is good for you is equally good for me, and what is good for me is equally good for you. That's the awareness. That's the feeling. Your calling has no value without love. I feel connected to God, and what glorifies God, what is good for God, is equally good for me. And what is good for me is equally glorifying of God. Those are not two different things. Those are the same. God has designed life so that what glorifies Him, our lives bearing fruit. John 15 says, Jesus tells the disciples, this is how my Father's glorified, that you bear much fruit. So God is glorified when we take what we receive from Him in relationship, in a love and trust relationship. We feel connected to Him, we receive from Him, and then we manifest it in the natural. We bear fruit. We produce books. We produce churches. We produce businesses. We produce scientific breakthroughs. We produce, a healthy family. We produce things from our relationship, and that glorifies God. It is equally beneficial to me and to God. And your calling is to do something that is equally beneficial to you and to those you're called to. Now, you are called to a certain kind of person to help them with a certain kind of thing. If I were talking about natural gardening, and say my calling was to equip other gardeners, I could say it like this: I help gardeners bear more fruit. So I help a certain group of people do a certain thing better. That's your calling. I help blank do blank better. Now that, there can be thousands of variations on that, but that's the basic idea. And what is good for my customer is equally good for me. What is good for my suppliers is equally good for me. What is good for my city is good for me. What is good for my church is good for me. That's love. Love is not a sacrifice. It cannot be a sacrifice. Because when you treat others well, you will get treated well. It may not be in the same moment, but over the course of your life and for eternity, whatever is good for other people is good for you. And so this is how we understand our calling. This is how we walk worthy of our calling. We stay connected to God and receive the things from God directly. We stay aware of His presence so that the things that can only come from God, we get those things, and we don't try to take them from other people. We don't try to take them from life. Things like a sense of identity, a sense of sonship, forgiveness, purpose, meaning, approval, forgiveness, love, joy, peace, creativity, revelation, grace. These are spiritual realities that can only come through your spiritual connection to the Father. And that can only happen through Jesus. He is the model, and His words are the way. His model is the way. His death and resurrection is the way. He is the way we connect to God. And we have to get, each of us have to get the things that only God can give directly from God through His Spirit. We receive revelation and grace. We receive love, joy, and peace. We receive creativity and abundance. We receive these things from God, each of us individually. And then we turn those things into a practice. We take responsibility to turn them into actions, which form habits, which in turn get results. And we ourselves take responsibility to develop relationships, to develop skills, to develop awareness, to love other people, which means we develop as many connections as possible. As many connections with other people as possible. And this can be done through books, it can be done through social media, it can be done through small groups, it can be done at church, it could be done at work, it could be family, it could be done through phone calls, it could be done a million different ways, through video, through a podcast like this, trying to develop as many connections as possible so that I can help the people I'm called to do the thing they're called to better. We're all serving this function, serving this role. And the point, it's all one point. Love is the point. Connection is the point. Where there is the building up of the body, the edification of the whole. Now don't think secular and sacred here. There is no such thing. There is ego-driven life and there is a love-driven life. That's it. There is spiritual awareness where you feel connected to God, or there is a life where you feel disconnected from God. There is no sacred and secular. God cares about nutrition and science and health and fitness and arts and music and education and government and all the things. He cares about all the things. He cares deeply about spiritual and physical realities. He cares deeply about family and about community and about whatever you're called to do. He cares deeply about it. He's the one that put the desires in your heart. But to walk worthy of that calling is for you to stay aware of your connection to God and get the things that can only be gotten from God, to get them from Him, and not try to take them from your purpose, take them from your calling, take them from other people, take them from your work, take them from your family, take them from entertainment, take them from, drugs or alcohol or substance abuse, take them from, you can't get forgiveness, approval, identity, purpose, meaning, joy, love, peace. You can't get those things from life. Those things are spiritual and they only come through the Spirit with a connected life. So to walk worthy is to stay aware of your connection to God. It is also to stay aware of your connection to people and to build that connection, more connections and deeper connections through vulnerability, through connectedness, through relationship, through service. It is love. Love is the point. Love is the point. Health. When you think about the health of the body, you think about everybody receiving and giving in equal proportion. You cannot just give, you have to receive. You have to receive from God and give to God. You have to receive from others and give to others. If you don't make enough money to do what you're called to do, you will not be able to do the calling. If nobody reads your books, you will not last very long as a writer. There has to be an equal receiving and giving. What is good for you is good for everyone. And that is true if you're not driven by your ego. If you are aware of your connection to the earth, to society, to your friends and family, to your people, and to God, then what is good for you is good for all. And it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship where every part of the body is equal in its receiving and giving. The heart and the lungs, they're both equally important. They're both serving two different functions in connection to one another. And that's how you walk worthy of your calling. You don't allow insecurity to put you below other people or arrogance to put you above other people. You don't try to just give, or receive. It's not about producing constantly or consuming constantly. It is about the connection. Walking worthy is to stay aware of love. It is to help the blank people that you're called to do their calling better. The eye serves the body, and the body serves the eye equally. The eye has to receive equally as it gives. It's love. Spiritual awareness, it's love awareness, it's connectedness. Staying aware of the connection. Staying aware of the connection all of the time. Staying aware of love. Staying aware of love. Staying aware of others. Developing relationships. Developing community. Developing connections. It equally benefits you and them. You and them. You're not trying to take from the relationship. You're giving into it. Knowing and trusting. Just like if you have any good relationships, you know this. That you focus on the other person and you're vulnerable with him and you develop trust with them and you give to them, not trying to get anything. You set boundaries, you do what is best for the other person, and then they do what is best for you. And it is equal receiving and giving, receiving and giving, receiving and giving. And that is only possible if you feel connected to the source. As soon as you lose your awareness of your connection to God, as soon as you lose the awareness, in one day, it does not carry over. It has to be developed daily. It's a practice. But as soon as you lose your awareness of your connection to God, you start to take from other people instead of give. You start to be less vulnerable, less trusting, less servant-minded, less giving, and it breaks the connection with them, and then they cannot give back to you. Your calling is to serve the body, to glorify God. That's your calling. It's all the same thing. But to walk worthy of it, is to stay aware every day of the source of life, and to stay aware of your connection to other people, and to develop those connections, to build those relationships, to stay in an equal receiving and giving. Don't favor one or the other. Learn from others and then teach others. Learn and teach. Give love, receive love. Give money, receive money. Give value, receive value. And it's not always in the same season, in the same moment, and the same thing. Typically you don't give money and get money back. You give money and you get relationships maybe, or you get purpose, you get meaning. You give of your talent and skill, and then you might receive money or favor. It is a constant giving and receiving, a building up of relationships, a serving the greater purpose, keeping the body healthy, glorifying God, growing yourself, developing your own skills and knowledge, developing your talents, using the revelation God gives you for not just your own good, but the good of the whole. Just like, the barbershop serves a meaningful purpose in the marketplace. It does not have any value without the whole marketplace, without the city, without the suppliers and the customers. There has to be an equal receiving and giving. The barbershop has to receive money from customers. It has to receive electricity. It has to receive safety from the police. It has to receive infrastructure from the government. And it has to give a meaningful, valuable service that is useful and helpful. It helps a businesswoman feel confident. It helps her fulfill her calling better. That's how it works. Walking worthy of your calling is love. It is staying aware and building connection with others so that you serve your function in the body to the best of your ability. All right, guys, I think that's it for today. I hope this is helpful. I know there's a lot of repetition, but sometimes we need repetition to understand, to get these things clear. If you are enjoying this podcast, if you find it useful in any way, it's possible that somebody else will find it useful. So they will know the podcast if you will rate it on iTunes, review it. That'll show it to more people. or if you just send it, send the link to somebody and say, hey, I was thinking about you when I was listening to this. I've done that dozens of times with other podcasts. I've sent the link to a friend or a family member because that specific message resonated. And I hope that this podcast is serving you, so you equally serve someone else. And let's keep this love thing going. Let's keep this love thing going. If you have found any of these episodes useful, please rate and review and share. Share it on social media, but much more dynamic is if you just share it directly with one person or two that would benefit from it, or you think would benefit from it. All right, guys, you have a great day. We'll see you next week. God bless you.